It's about persistence? Sony, if there is anything we Bloodborne players know, it's persistence. I can't believe they teased that. Okay, welcome back to another video. I originally wanted to include the max tier runes in the previous video about the weapons, but I decided against it after reaching nearly 20 minutes. Also, I was kind of done collecting footage for a video that I was expecting to get like 1 to 200 views. Turns out, Bloodborne content is more popular than I thought. So, runes act as a sort of equipment slot that can give you extra health, stamina, or other resources and stats. And like the weapons, you can get most of them from the Chalice Dungeons immediately after you receive the first root dungeon. In order to use the runes, you need to get the tool from the Witches of Hemwick. A completely optional and easily skippable boss, by the way. Facing the Grand Cathedral where you fight Vicar Amelia, go left. It's not a particularly long adventure. The enemies you need to look out for are dogs, brutes, and angry women. Also, extra enemies will come out of the ground if your insight's too high. Make sure you open the gate for an easier run back. The boss is just up the hill from there. The boss fight itself can be rather challenging if you go in unprepared. It's not a 1v1 like most of the bosses in the game, it's a 2v1 that summons other enemies. The other witch starts hidden but can be found early. Your goal is to hunt down the witches before they summon enough monsters to overwhelm you. Also, the witches can stun you like the brainsuckers. Also, they can grab you and carve your eyes out. Also, they can resurrect each other if you're too slow. Yeah, this game is making you work for your power-ups. Unless, of course, you're too dumb to see them. No, seriously, lowering your insight to 0 prevents the witches from summoning anything, making for one of the most laughably easy fights in the entire game. Now, with the Rune Inscribing tool in hand, the other necessity is the Root Chalice. I went over this in the last video, but you need to beat Gascoigne, get through Old Yarnum, beat the Bloodstarved Beast, go to the Hunter's Dream, activate the Gravestone, find a lever, kill the Giant, find another lever, kill the Watchers, and it's yours. Now, through the power of save editing, we can go through a bunch of late game dungeons as if they were depth level 1. And I'm going to tell you how to get every single max tier rune. However, there are 4 runes I could not find in the save edit dungeons. Well, actually there's 6, but those other 2 are found in the main game. With all that said, the order I'm going to do this will be, first the max tier runes you can only get on the first floor. As in, you don't need to fight anything, all you need to do is run. Then I will go over the runes you can only get from layers 2 and 3 of the save edit dungeons, as well as all the bosses you need to fight. There will be an alternate glyph code listed if you already have the corresponding root chalice. Next, I'll go over the runes that aren't in a save edit dungeon, to my knowledge, listed with the required dungeon. And finally, the runes you can only get in the main story. Oh boy, do I have some words to say for those! One more thing, if you are given a glyph code for a root dungeon and you receive a "you do not meet the requirements" notification for it, then it probably has a few rituals active. Fetid, Rotten, and Cursed are modifiers you can make to the dungeons. If you create a root chalice with all of them activated, you should be able to access the previously restricted dungeon now. You do not need to beat the dungeon you just made, you just need to create it with the rituals and that should solve the problem. I was really confused about this in my previous video, and of course I figured out what was happening the day after I upload. Also, the glyphs were provided by the Tome Prospector community. I don't know how they found/created these, but I appreciate them immensely for it. And, by the way, if I sound different at different times of the video, I'm sorry. I live with people, and my mic is kinda bad. I know that was a long intro, but there was a lot I wanted to go over. I want to start with the dungeon that has the health boosting rune, but that's in the second treasure room. The first treasure room has the Oedon Writhe rune. This rune gives you 3 bullets every time you perform a visceral attack. It's a pretty useful rune on some builds, and the run to get it is really easy. Up next is the Clockwise Metamorphosis rune. This one boosts your health by 15%, which is useful no matter where you are in the game. This rune is in the second treasure dungeon, which means you have to find a lever before you can unlock it. To find the lever, you go in the big circle room, take a left, and in the next room climb the ladder, and then go right, back into the same room, but this time take the rasters to the room with the lever. All you have to do is get by this banshee thing, and you're good to go. Once you have access to the second treasure dungeon, just go in, go straight forward, When you reach the first room, take a right and fall down one flight of stairs. Go through the door, take a left, and the chest will be in a room full of enemies. It's not as easy as the last one, but considering what you're getting, this one's absolutely worth the run to. And this is still very easy compared to what's coming up. Next up is the Anti-Clockwise Metamorphosis. This increases your stamina by 20%, a straight upgrade from the one you get from patches. It's another straight shot. Go in the first room and take a right, and then go all the way up the stairs, go through the pathway, and you'll eventually reach this big canyon area. Cross the bridge, stay on the top layer, and the treasure chest should be right in there. Next up we have another easy one, the Claw Mark rune. This one increases the damage of your visceral attacks by 30%. Like the Dagger Talisman from Elden Ring. This is a very easy level to go through. All you need to do once you enter is just keep going, take the first left, and then just keep going straight. The chest is in a big room dead ahead. Okay, so the next rune we have to go through is Communion. This rune lets you hold up to 5 additional blood vials, totaling up for 200% of your health bar worse than healing. It's another really easy route. Just go down the hallway, past a few beasts. The only thing you need to look out for is the bell-ringing woman, who will summon an army of spiders on you if you don't take her out. Besides that, this is another short and simple run. Our next rune is going to be Formless Oedon. This rune works just like the Communion rune, except it gives 5 bullets instead of blood vials. It's another one that's in the second treasure room, so you have to find a lever. Honestly, it's another really easy one. Just jump down into the graveyard area and then climb up the ladder, and then just go straight forward. You'll find the lever. The treasure room is also pretty easy. You just go down the hall, get to the room with the ladder, go up the ladder, and then go through this window, and then drop down. There's a shortcut halfway through. If you go all the way down to the room with the rats, a watcher is guarding the rune we seek. Up next is an interesting one. It's Dissipating Lake. This is another one where you have to get it in the second treasure room, so you have to get the lever. You go across to the other side of this big room and climb the ladder. Go inside the room with the trees, take a right, and the lever should be in that upcoming room. What this rune does is it makes you take 10% less lightning damage. The second treasure room is a short run, but it hits you with a lot of beasts, starting with 2 of them hiding behind the corner at the entrance. Once you reach the staircase room, take a right, go down the circular staircase, and the rune should be in the next room. If this glyph code looks familiar, that's because the first treasure room in this one has a burial blade inside. I mentioned that in my previous video, if you want to go and grab that. Okay, for the final rune you can get in the Save Edit dungeons without fighting any bosses, we have the Eye rune. What this rune does is it gives you the biggest possible boost to your item discovery in the game, totaling up to 100. In the dungeon itself, enter the treasure room, and once you get to the little round section, don't go in the next room, just turn around and climb the ladder that's right behind you. Once you're up there, go through the hallway and dodge the boulder. Eventually you will reach the bridge with the swinging axe trap. Dodge those, cross the bridge, enter the treasure room, and then dodge the brain sucker, and the rune will be yours. Oh yeah, this can also stack with the 2 weaker versions of itself, totaling up for 220 item discovery. Have fun farming. Alright, now we're on the runes that you can only get after you clear the first floor, which means you have to fight the boss. Starting with the Great Lake rune. This one gives you a 4% damage resistance across the board. The first lever is pretty easy to get to, it's only like 3 rooms away. The only thing you have to worry about are the brain suckers. Now, the boss is the Man-Eater Boar, which is one of the easiest bosses in the entire game. It's just a giant punching bag. His weaknesses are fire, serrated attacks, and visceral attacks. Once you beat the pig, the Great Lake rune will be in the first treasure room of the second layer. When you enter the treasure dungeon, it leads you to this big grassy room that's infested with more giant boars. I take a right here and go counterclockwise. However, the way you're supposed to go is taking a left and going to the adjacent wall. In there will lead you to a room with a ladder. Don't go up it, there's another door in the room. If you go up the ladder, you'll end up like I did, essentially running laps with more pigs. Okay, so for our next rune is going to be Fading Lake. This dungeon is a continuation of one from earlier that gave the Dissipating Lake rune. And the Fading Lake gives you a 10% resistance to all fire damage. The boss in your way is the Beast-Possessed Soul. This is the hardest boss I'm going to make you fight in the video. And this thing is aggressive. To make matters worse, unlike most other beasts, this one's resistant to fire. Luckily, it still retains the weakness to serrated weapons, if you have a few of those lying around. Now, most of his attacks leave him open for parries, but make sure you don't leave yourself open, because this thing has leaping attacks, claw attacks that never stop, and a wide variety of fire attacks to keep you on your toes. Once you get to layer 2, light the lamp, and you'll notice that you have to get another lever. Except, psych, I lied to you. This is not... You don't have to get another lever, because this is the treasure. You're already in the treasure room. Turns out this dungeon does something funny, where you don't have to find the lever. You just have to go around and exit throughout the treasure room. This is a fairly complicated layout. Go through the room with the bell, follow the hallway, and then take a left. There you'll find the circular hallway room where you're going to fall down, go into this big elongated room, go around, and the Fading Lake chest is right there. Yeah, you want to know something hilarious about this rune though? As of time of recording, the spreadsheet that lists out all the Chalice glyphs, it lists this chest as Clear Deep Sea, which made things moderately annoying for me because I had to find another Clear Deep Sea. I did, but I'll get to that in a bit. And no, it did not switch places with the other Fading Lake. That's also another Fading Lake, I checked. But the reason why I'm not showing that one is because you have to fight a watchdog to get to it. What might be the only boss you ever use this rune for. Well, and Lawrence, I guess. Deep Sea is the next rune on our list. This is the rune that boosts your frenzy resistance. So this rune's actually good in multiple parts of the main game. Once you get the lever in the first area, you have the Merciless Watchers. They're not particularly difficult. Who am I kidding? These things are parry dummies on a good day. If you need to, you can use the pillars to create space in between them. Alright, so once you start the second layer, you can just take a left, and there's going to be a treasure room along the wall. This is another one where the treasure room is inside of the main room. And then there's another treasure room door. You can just go through that. It leads you to the big temple-like area. Go to the other side and go up the stairs. That can lead you to the second layer of the big room. And then the chest is in a room along the top layer. Oh yeah, and if you didn't already, there is a blood rock in the first treasure room of the first layer. If you didn't get one already from the Eyes dungeon. Alright, you're probably wondering, if this isn't Clear Deep Sea, then where can I find Clear Deep Sea? Well, see this lake up in the top right corner? That's actually not lake, it's Clear Deep Sea, meaning we can just go to that one. Now, it's in the third layer, so I'm not going to show you how to get each lever individually. Admittedly, I did forget to record. Instead, I'm just going to tell you how to find the bosses. The first boss that's in your way is going to be the Beast-Possessed Soul. I already went over how to fight this thing in the Fading Lake section. However, the main thing you have to worry about with this boss is the sheer aggression it puts forward. The next boss, however, isn't even a boss. The Loran Silver Beast is a normal enemy that just found a health bar somewhere. Even at depth level 5 scaling, this thing is a joke. This may or may not start to be a trend with this video, but I forgot to record myself getting the lever. In the main dungeon area, there is a bell just hanging off of nothing. If you can get to the second level of that room, then one of the adjacent rooms has the lever. The actual treasure dungeon is a relatively straightforward one. Once you get past the hallway, you will be presented with an L-shaped room. Take a right, go down the hall, and then on your left you will reach the spiral staircase room. Go down the stairs, and the rune is in the next room. Enjoy your poison resistance. I'm certain you'll get plenty of mileage out of this rune. It's not like you had to beat the only hard poison boss to get here. Okay, for the next rune we're going over is going to be the Lake rune. This one's also going to be at layer 3. The first boss you have to fight is going to be the Man-Eater Boar, so not much of a challenge in that regard. But you do have to fight a Beast-Possessed Soul in the second layer, so good luck with that. That can be a pretty decent challenge, especially when you have the difficulty of a depth level 5 dungeon. Once you do get to the third layer, you can go into the treasure dungeon. It will lead you to the triple layered big room with all the chandeliers inside. Go on the bottom layer, there's an entrance on the side, that will lead you to this room with all the rats. Go in there and take a right, and that will lead you to the room with the chest. The Lake rune is one of the best runes in the game, providing a 7% resistance buff to all physical damage. With how common physical damage is, this is one of the most coveted runes in the game. And for the final rune you can get from the save edit dungeons, we have the Beast rune. This is also on a third layer. Your first boss is going to be the Loran Silver Beast, if you count him as a boss. But as for the next boss, put your hands together for the fourth appearance of Beast-Possessed Soul in the list. At this point, you should just know how to fight this thing. The Beast rune is in the first treasure room, so you don't have to get the lever, thank goodness. Entering the treasure dungeon leads you to the spiral staircase. If you choose to go up the stairs, it will lead you to the rafters of the circular room, which will lead you to another room. However, the treasure room with the rune inside is connected to the circular room, so you could just jump down the rafters and go in. I didn't realize that when I was recording this, so I'm going the long way around. The Beast rune promotes a unique playstyle where using the Beast Blood pellets, you transform into the monsters that you're fighting, similarly to Gascoigne, only you can control it. For the first of the runes that you can't get from the save edit dungeons, we have the Heir rune. This one boosts the amount of blood echoes you can get from visceral attacks by 60%. I do have to ask, why? This does work on bosses, so you can make the argument for that, but other than that, you're better off just using the Moon rune. I don't think a single person minds you can't get this in the save edit dungeons. Up next is Stunning Deep Sea. This is another one that's not available in the save edit dungeons, so you have to make your way down to Lower Loran. I would argue of the 4 runes that I could not find in the save edit dungeons, this one is the most useful one, because it gives you rapid poison resistance. For the Elden Ring players watching, rapid poison is bleed. Now, there aren't that many enemies that use rapid poison, especially in the main game. However, if you are running the Chalice Dungeons, this could be a useful rune for the Iril Chalice. As for the route itself, it's not that hard. Enter the treasure dungeon, go outside and cross the bridge. There you will go up 1 floor and then cross another bridge back. Once you reach the other side, the chest is in the next room, guarded by a bunch of enemies. And then for the next one is Great Deep Sea. This is one that boosts all status effect resistances by 150. That sounds like it's useful, but no, it's not. There's not a single situation in the game where you are met with more than one status effect where both of them are impossible to handle. In fact, this one actually boosts it less than the level 2 of each Deep Sea, making this rune one of the most worthless in the game. And for the final rune you can get in the Chalice Dungeons is the Arcane Lake. I had to go on a bit of an adventure for this one. I think this one might also be one of the rarest ones. Now, I'm not an expert when it comes to these dungeons, but I could only find 3 dungeons with Arcane Lake, and this was the only one where you didn't have to fight a boss. But you do still need to find a lever and get to the second treasure room. As for what it does, this is the rune that boosts arcane resistance by 10%. You can make the argument that this is more useful than the Stunning Deep Sea I have mentioned earlier. One neat trick you can do with this rune is, when you're going through the normal Eyes dungeon, you can get the Root Chalice and then come here for the Arcane Lake rune, and then go back to fight Ebriatus with a 10% resistance to Arcane. And with that, that is every single Maxia rune you can get from the Chalice Dungeons. However, the astute among you may realize that was not all the runes. 2 of them were excluded. That's because they are introduced in the main campaign. And in case if anyone's wondering about Guidance, the rune that was introduced in the DLC, the Tier 3 was never made available, so you were stuck with the Tier 2 rune from Ludwig. Besides that, most of the runes you can get in the main campaign are either Tier 1 or Tier 2. There's the Eye rune you can get from William before you fight Rom. You can also get the Beast rune from the Suspicious Beggar in the Forbidden Woods. You can either kill him for it, in which case you'll have to fight the Abhorrent Beast, or you can send him to the clinic and have Yosefka deal with him. And the Heir rune is just lying around at Yar Hargul, just to name a few examples. But eventually, when playing the game, you will have to fight everyone's favorite boss, Lash, for some cost-forsaken reason, guards not only the Tier 3, but the Tier 2 Moon Rune as well. And I'm just going to tell you how to get all of them because you're obviously going to use them together most of the time. And on that same note, the Tier 1 Moon Rune is in High Pagan Gale, in the middle of the room with the lantern, in case if anyone missed that. You can get it early if you get killed by a Snatcher, or you can get it after you kill Ram and pick it up on your way to fight the One Reborn. After you kill the One Reborn and enter the Nightmare of Memphis, make your way up the tower all the way to Lash. Phase 1 of his boss fight consists of you chasing him around until he goes into a secluded room. Here he will spam the same attack, which can parry you, by the way, until you get him down to half health. After you complete Phase 1 of this boss fight, you can go through the previously locked door. Once you reach the spiral staircase, take a left and go down the stairs. At the bottom, you will find the Tier 2 Moon Rune. And that brings me to Tier 3. This one is a whole adventure in of itself. On your way through Yarhargul, all you need to do is run past the first few buildings and dodge the lasers from the amygdala. After you exit the second building, past the lantern, fall on the edge to get into the room with the cage. In there, a corpse has the key to the upper cathedral ward. To get there, go to the hunter's workshops through the cathedral ward, and now you can get to the top. Going through the door brings you to the upper cathedral ward. Cross the bridge, light the lantern, and enter the building. Here, you are going to be faced with over a dozen of two of the most annoying enemies in the game. Brain suckers and giant dogs. Fun fact, this used to be the best bloodstone chunk farm in the game. There are going to be 4 dogs in total on the bottom floor where the chandelier crashes onto. If you go to your right, you will find the Cosmic Eye Watcher badge, which will allow you to buy infinite twin bloodstone shards as well as some of the best consumables in the entire game. On the opposite side of the building, there will be a ladder you can climb up to the second floor again. Be cautious of all the brain suckers that are going to jump you at any given moment. Eventually, after completing this gauntlet, you will reach this door that leads you to this scarecrow thing. Interacting with it will give you the Make Contact gesture. Now, go back to the Nightmare and beat Lash if you haven't already. Once you light the first lantern after Lash's boss fight, keep going up the stairs and you will find an elevator. Taking this elevator allows you to jump through this window halfway down, leading you to a new area. Going through this area, whether by killing or running past all the frenzy brains, will lead you to this lever. Pulling it triggers a cutscene where the giant frenzy brain falls into the abyss. If you keep going past the lever, there's a blood rock in the spot where the brain used to be. Now go to one of the first rooms of this area. You probably saw this elevator before and entered, only to be simultaneously terrified and confused. Now when you go down there, you will find the brain unable to make you go insane. You may have to reset the area a few times to get it to be there, but once you find it, use the Make Contact gesture and wait for a minute. There's your rune. Using all 3 grants you 72% extra blood echoes. And then make sure to kill the brain so you can get the living string for the Earl Chalice. Alright, now on to Blood Rapture. This one might be the single most annoying rune to get in the entire game. It drops from the Bloody Crow of Canehurst as a part of Eileen's questline. Firstly, you can find her in Central Yharnam above the big boat room. Talking to her will allow you to meet her later outside of Cathedral Ward, after you would open all the gates around the Grand Cathedral. Here, she will tell you to stay away from the Tome of Oedon where you fought Gascoigne. Now, listen carefully. Killing the Dark Beast Pearl or the Witch of Hemwick will potentially result in her disappearing and her trying to kill you later.
What good hunters now?
Also, killing Vicar Amelia and entering the Second World State does not mess up her questline. However, she did disappear when I killed the Shadows of Yharnam, so keep that in mind. With that said, go to the Tome and meet Henrik. Eileen will join you shortly after engaging. Do not hit her too many times or she will become aggressive and try to kill you. And... Are you kidding me? Turns out, the Hunter of Hunters sucks at her job, and Henrik will kill her if you're not drawing aggro, ending the quest line. After you kill Henrik, with Eileen alive, go through the game normally until you kill Ram and enter the Third World State. Then go back to the Cathedral Ward and go to the Grand Cathedral. Talk to Eileen on the ground, ignore her warning, and finally kill the stupid bird. Getting the final max tier rune, Blood Rapture. This rune gives you 300 health restored on every visceral attack. It's honestly a really good rune. I just wish it wasn't so hard to get. And then going back to talk to Eileen gives you her badge, an ambiguous ending to her story, and the Hunter's Covenant. How long is this video so far? You know what? I don't care. The Hunter's Rune is given after completing Eileen the Crow's questline, which grants you a 10% stamina regeneration speed. This is the best one to play with offline. And it allows you to invade blood-addled hunters without the need for an invasion bell. Impurity can be found in the Forbidden Woods after unlocking the first shortcut. Go around the enemies, go across the river, and go through the mill, go past the bridge, take a right, go up the elevator, and there's Voltaire. Talk to Voltaire and you will get the Impurity Rune, which gives you 2% more health in co-op. What the rune doesn't tell you is that he's a summonal NPC for multiple boss fights. Next up is the Corruption Rune. Starting at the Forbidden Woods, stick to the leftmost path after the enemies, which will eventually lead you to the cages with the dogs and then a cave. Go through there and go up the ladder, which brings you back to the clinic at the start of the game. Except now you can enter through the window. Go back to the room where you started the game in and you will find the Canehurst summons. Go to Hemwick Lane and interact with the signposts. Get on the horses and that will bring you to the castle. Get through the level, kill Agarius, put on the crown, and meet the queen. Swearing an oath grants you the Corruption Rune, which gives you regeneration when you're at low health. This does not affect any main quest lines, surprisingly enough. Okay, so siding with the Vile Bloods doesn't anger Eileen, but killing the lightning rat in my basement makes her kill me? Then there's Radiant. You know that one guy you met on your way to Old Yarnum who gave you lore? When you enter the second world state, he moves to an area right before the Forbidden Woods. Ally with him when you first meet him, and when you get to Canehurst Castle, I explained that step in the Corruption chapter. There is an unopened summons on the desk by the Queen. Give him the summons and go back to Canehurst to interact with him one more time. Then go back to the spot where you meet him for the first time on your way to Old Yarnum, inspect his corpse and you will receive the Radiant Rune. 2% extra health restored from vials. This does not mess up the Vile Blood quest, by the way. You can even resurrect the Queen if you find the Altar of Despair in Ebrietas' arena. Now entering the DLC. Go to what would be the Grand Cathedral and get a pendant from Lawrence. Traverse the DLC as normal up to after killing Ludwig. Progress through the prison and kill the 2 church hunters. See this elevator that plays a cutscene? You can go back down it and it does that neat trick where a second elevator is at the bottom. Here, you can get Lawrence's skull. Grab it and go back to the Grand Cathedral so you can start his boss fight. It's similar to the Cleric Beast fight, except it's scaled to endgame with new attacks and a second phase. Kill Lawrence and receive the Beast's Embrace Rune. At first glance, it's an additional Beast Rune, but equipping it transforms you into, well, a beast. Interestingly enough, it does not affect your resistances. You will not take more damage from fire or serrated weapons. It does, however, affect the Beast Claw weapon, giving it an entirely new moveset. Finally, we have the Milkweed Rune. After reaching the clock tower, find the 2 blobs with no limbs. One is at the top of the tower hiding on the rafters, the other one is hiding in the middle platform with a bunch of enemies. Killing them will give you brain fluid. Then you will find rooms on the right side of the building with elevators. Taking them all the way down will lead you to a room with a woman asking you for said brain fluid. Give one to her, reload the area, repeat the process once, and then come back a 3rd time and you will find her by the door. You may have to reload the area several times in order to get her to progress to the next step. Also, you may have to use the blood and key she gives you. I personally only progressed after killing the living failures. But once you do progress to the next step, attack her for the 3rd brain fluid, and then give it back to her. That gives you the Milkweed Rune. Like the Beast's Embrace, it transforms you, but instead of a beast, it's a kin. This also does not affect resistances. The effect gives you additional item discovery, acting as a Force Iron. This is why a lot of people look like mushrooms in farming videos. It's also the only way you can use the final boss weapon. So, have fun with that. I cannot believe I thought this would be easy. This was so much harder to make than the weapons. I really have to thank the Tome Prospectors and the people who bundle these glyphs together. They have provided something incredible to the community, and I would not have been able to make these 2 videos without them. If I got something wrong, feel free to correct me in the comments. To be entirely honest, I probably did somewhere along the way. Anywho, I hope everyone watching had a Merry Christmas, and I wish everyone a Happy New Year.